More and more troops and veterans of Iraq believe George Bush's military policy has been a disaster. I am one of them. Rush Limbaugh called vets like me phony soldiers for telling the truth about Iraq. Rush, the shrapnel I took to my head was real. My traumatic brain injury was real. And my belief that we are on the wrong course in Iraq is real. Until you have the guts to call me a phony soldier to my face, stop telling lies about my service.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Nora.
Let me first ask you about this new ad being run by Vote Vets and what Rush Limbaugh said yesterday, that essentially he said that these liars have essentially strapped lies to his belt, sending him out via the media and TV ad to walk into as many people as he can walk into. Is that an unfortunate analogy, given that actually this vet was actually wounded by a suicide bomber?
Well, Nora, I think that all of this is about talk radio and freedom of speech, and I think it has been blown out of proportion by the people who are still smarting from the General Petraeus ad backfiring on them. And, frankly, I think there's a First Amendment issue that goes well beyond Rush Limbaugh, and that's the right of private citizens to have discourse without the U.S. Congress or members of the Senate leadership denouncing him.
Well, why isn't the Senate leadership or whatever allowed, as part of also free discourse, free speech, allowed to denounce him?
Well, I think they can, but I think at the same time trying to say that, twisting his words and trying to say that he was talking about soldiers who disagree with Iraq policy is ridiculous. I listened to the transcripts, as I'm sure you have, and Rush Limbaugh is a patriotic pro-soldier guy. He's been to Afghanistan. He's raised millions of dollars for the Marine Corps and military families. And to try to say that soldiers who speak out against the war are phony soldiers and that attribute that to Rush Limbaugh is ridiculous. That is not the case at all. He was talking about Jesse McBeth, who was a guy who said he went to Iraq and he saw American soldiers torturing and killing Iraqi citizens, and the reality is he was in the military 44 days, never went to Iraq, and he was drummed out of the military, and now he's serving a 5-month sentence in jail for being a phony soldier, which is the word of the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Congressman, I know you're familiar with the details of this case, and those who are critics of Rush Limbaugh, however, are saying that Rush Limbaugh never talked about Mr. McBeth until about 2 minutes after he used the word phony soldiers, and that since he also said phony soldiers in the plural, that he was referring to multiple people, not a phony soldier in the singular.
Well, again, let's think about what Rush Limbaugh has been, a very pro-soldier guy. He is a pro-soldier guy. He welcomes opposing viewpoints, and I think he did clarify what he said out of an abundance of caution. But the left, in trying to make him a poster child for evil on the right-hand side, is trying to target him. And I think it's just tit for tat because of the General Petraeus.
And retired U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Brian McGuff, who served in Kosovo, earned the Bronze Star in Afghanistan, and as we just saw, sustained a devastating head wound in Iraq. Sergeant, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your service to this country.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get to the specific points Mr. Limbaugh made in that tape from his broadcast, what's your initial reaction to them?
My initial reaction is disgust. How someone can sit in that chair and say that I am a car bomber, or excuse me, a suicide bomber, is disgusting. I've seen the after effects of a suicide bomb. I've had friends that were hurt in suicide bombs. It makes me mad down to a place where I can't even think to describe. It's just repugnant.
To fact check his claims in there, and he admitted he hadn't seen what you said, which is a sort of a bad starting point from his point of view, one would imagine. But did anybody interpret his remarks for you or tell you what to think about them? You've heard them for yourself, have you not, unlike what Mr. Limbaugh did not hear from you?
Yes, I have heard them for myself. I've read the transcripts, I've heard the audio. I was asked if I'd be interested in doing an ad, and I told them I would be, as long as I agreed with the language of the ad. I read the language of the ad and agreed with it, and it's something that I stand by and stick by. I do believe it, and I can think for myself. And for Rush Limbaugh to say that an American soldier like me can't think for myself because I speak out against the Iraq war is preposterous. A growing number, almost 70% of the U.S. population does not believe in the war. Military is just a mirror image of that, so a lot of veterans and troops don't believe in the war. So what you're really saying is that a growing large number of veterans and troops can't think for themselves.
Yeah, but even if it was just you, or just a handful of people, and that's still your right, is it not?
Yes, it is my right. It's my right that I fought for, I bled for, I sweated all the time, I cried for, and he has the right to say what he wants too, but he has to understand he's got a responsibility. And I said what I said, and I'm coming out and saying, look, these are my words, I believe in them. Where is he? I would like him to have any member of our organization on his show at any time so we can talk to him and look him in the face and say, am I a phony soldier? Do I look like a suicide bomber to you? That's all we ask.
Final note on the war. You may remember our report last month based on the remarkably candid op-ed piece written for the New York Times by 7 of our soldiers in Iraq. Putting their careers on the line, they took issue with the optimistic rhetoric of officials in Washington on the progress of the occupation. We are militarily superior, they wrote, but our successes are offset by failures elsewhere. They went on to describe those failures one by one. In the end, the soldiers said, we need to recognize that our presence may have released Iraqis from the grip of a tyrant, but that it has also robbed them of their self-respect. They will soon realize that the best way to regain dignity is to call us what we are, an army of occupation, and force our withdrawal. But then the 7 men pledged themselves anew to their duty. As committed soldiers, they wrote, we will see this mission through. As they were preparing the op-ed, one of the men, Sergeant Jeremy Murphy, was shot in the head by a sniper. He is now in a rehab facility in Southern California trying to recover from a severe traumatic brain injury. Since then, 2 of the other co-authors of the piece and 5 comrades were killed when their military vehicle turned over in Baghdad. Yancey Tell Gray was 26 and wore his sergeant's stripes proudly on his sleeve. Next to the Bronze Star on his chest and the oak leaf clusters, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the Humanitarian Service Medal, and the badges indicating his service as a combat infantryman, ranger, and paratrooper. He had won just about every honor a soldier could win for doing just about everything a soldier can do. His wife, Jessica, said he was an amazing husband and an adoring father who couldn't wait to come home and be a dad to his daughter. He didn't make it. He was nearing the end of 4 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan when he was killed. This week, he was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery, having given all a soldier can give. Omar Mora enlisted in the Army because he wanted to do something in response to 9/11. He made sergeant in 3 years and was shipped to Iraq. A roadside bomb damaged his hearing in April, and he was sent home for 2 weeks. He returned to combat only to have a comrade die in his arms. Sergeant Moore had just received his citizenship papers when he and Sergeant Gray were killed. His service was held at St. Mary of the Miraculous Medal Church, where he had taught Sunday school. He came to America from Ecuador with his mother when he was 2 years old. I'm sure many of you have been watching Ken Burns' moving account this week of The War, his notable series recollecting the personal stories of the sacrifice made by an earlier generation of Americans caught up in the cataclysm of the Second World War. But any war is the war for the soldiers who die in it, the war they will not live to remember or recount for their grandchildren or revisit in the movies. For Sergeants Omar Mora and Yancey Tell Gray, who fought bravely and bravely told us the truth, the war is over.
Talking about one soldier with that phony soldier comment, Jesse Macbeth. It's not possible intellectually to follow these people.
No, it's not. And what's really funny is they never talk to real soldiers. They like to pull these soldiers to come up out of the blue and stop the media.
The phony soldiers.
The phony soldiers.